All right, parents of new rowers, of junior age, high school students, or even junior high school. If you're new to rowing and your child signed up, or you signed them up for rowing, you will hear how great it is about teamwork, perseverance, making people physically and mentally stronger, all the good stuff. And that is true. Rowing does all of that. But one of the things to also know is that it will take up a lot of time. Bringing your child to the rowing club and the logistics of putting a boat on the water, taking it out of the water. Expect at least 3.5 hours of commitment, 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes maybe more. And then of course, there will be regattas. There will be full head races and then regattas that take up a lot of time. If you felt like, hey, let's go for a weekend somewhere else, you have to first check the rowing program and calendar. But there's more. There's more. Your son or daughter will not really know what the training is going to be in the near future. Oftentimes, well, 99% of the time, the junior rowers don't know what the workout is the day off, the week coming, or in best case scenarios, they're told that there might be a test, a physical endurance test coming up in a few days. But it's a bit of a guessing game. And when I say physical endurance test, it usually is something to do with a rowing machine. And that rowing machine, called Erg test, an ergometer, an erg, is the source of great stress for 99% of the rowers in the world, if they're not prepared for it and trained right for it. So the Erg test usually favors the taller, heavier individuals. And with the type of training that most of the high school rowers get in club rowing, junior rowing, it remains that way. But it doesn't have to be. With good coaching good conditioning, the playing field is evened out on the ergometer. So shorter, lighter people can have exceptionally good Erg scores as well. So not knowing what is coming down the pipeline when it comes to workouts is a source of stress for the rower. Now you can look at it very positively and say, well, my kid is capable of anything, whatever life throws at them. But it's nice also to be able to prepare mentally for a certain day that a test happens, like in school, okay? If we compare school to club rowing, it's nothing like it. Everything that we like about school, most of the junior rowing programs don't have. The teachers are educated in pedagogy, and teachers are checked by their superiors whether their way of teaching is done right. Parents have meetings with teachers. you can go to a principal and ask for further details on what has happened with your student at school. Now, that is not the case at the club. For most of the clubs, again, I would say 99%, parents do not really get immediate access to the coach. The reason? Well, a lot of stuff happens at the club where the teaching that is taught, what's taught to your kid, does not necessarily follow the positive way of teaching at the school. So your son or daughter will come home a bit frustrated, not knowing why something was said, or not knowing how a technical aspect of their stroke can be fixed. And so it's really hard to go and find out the answers, because oftentimes the coaches are well-meaning. There's no question about it. They want to win. They're very ambitious, but they don't really have a clear answer as to why they do certain things. That's because they know what they know from the coaches that coach them. And their way of looking at someone rowing sometimes baffles my mind, because there are things that are really obvious that are not pointed out, or they see it but they cannot really verbalize how to improve the technique the flaw of technique with the right technical drills. So that adds to the stress of a junior rower. So we have the Erg test, we have the unknown of what type of workout happens, and then not being able to find the right answers as a parent to help your rower. Now, of course, I'm around for this, but let's keep going. The other thing that's really interesting as well is that often, 99% of the time, boats are picked, A boat, B boat, and third varsity, pickle boat, the ones that are not really showing the right numbers on the ergometer, on the Erg Score, which is, in my opinion, slightly fundamentally wrong, because a good Erg Score may not be a person who can move the boat really well. So the process of selecting the top boat, the second boat, the third boat is flawed, in the sense that 99% of the time, the coaches don't necessarily do the selection on the water. That's called seat racing. But they tend to use the Erg Score to determine who sits in which boat. Which again, the Erg Score not only puts the rower in front of everyone with a number above their head that says you're Joe or Cindy, and your Erg Score is what? You will hear a lot of times, oh, this is Peter and his Erg Score is. Or this is Nicole and holy cow, her Erg Score is. That Erg Score is going to move with your rower throughout their rowing career. So that's not being said when you first hear parents meeting. What's not being said either is that oftentimes, 99% of the time, there are not enough rowing machines per athlete. Now that matters in the areas where rowing is done, where the climate gets really cold. You can't go on the water, and then you have 60 rowers for 20 rowing machines. Sometimes it's not even the money that is caused for not having more rowing machines, it's the space. You have to fit these rowing machines somewhere. There may only be space for 20, and you have 60 rowers. So a lot of the times in winter, people get rotated through, and a lot of the times, 99% of the time, the conditioning, the cross training, does not make the rower any faster. They may make it mentally harder, but physiologically not any better, because usually it doesn't follow the right training intensity, and it's a rush. Winter conditioning, late fall conditioning, early spring conditioning is going to put pressure on the rowers when they have a moment on the erg. They usually go as hard as they can, and the ratio of rowers to coaches is so lopsided that you have one coach for 30 kids, and the attention to detail gets lost. And so what ends up happening is your son or daughter is rowing on the erg, but certain fundamental technical issues are not taken care of. And the more strokes they take, the more it gets ingrained in the neuromuscular system. And you end up having rowers who have a real quirky rowing stroke because they were not really taught how to self-coach or what to really look out for when they're erging. And that's an issue, because that does lead to, in the worst case scenario, that does lead to, I don't want to scare, right? It leads to bad posture on the erg. And usually people don't get hurt on the erg. But when the posture is not ergonomically correct on the erg, and then the cross training happens where they have to go running, or they do a weight circuit, or a combination of it all, there is this muscle imbalance that is created on the erg, and it's not necessarily even, because sweep rowing with one oar, is introduced sort of too early at the club level, because it's easier to put in 8 people in an 8, that's a sweep rowing boat, than two quads with sculling oars, which keeps the body symmetric. So you have these logistics where more people get put in a boat, in a sweep boat, but that creates an imbalance in the back and the legs. And then when cross training is done in the weight room, and they put weights in either hand or squats or whatever it is, with the floor that's perfectly flat, the spine is a little crooked, or one leg is more dominant, one arm is more dominant, one side of the back is more dominant, that can lead to a little Hexenschuss. You can pull your back, okay? And not with a lot of weight. Sometimes, more often than not, more weight is used than on the rowing machine. So the lack of technical supervision on the erg can lead to pulling the back. And of course, leads to not using the larger muscles to propel the flywheel as fast as possible to get the Erg score down as quickly as possible. And the final thing I'm going to say, because there's a myriad of things, right? And I can't believe it's already 15 minutes into it. The rowing clubs, their goal is to do well on the water as a team. The better the club does as a team, the better the club looks to future parents signing up their kids to the program. The thing about that is, in order to get recruited to college, it's that Erg score that sits above each one of their heads that ends up mattering the most. The Erg score gets people recruited to college. The better the Erg score, the more competitive the program. And it so happens where the programs are the most competitive, at the Ivy League schools, they are really competitive. It's a pretty prestigious school. Now, so they often say rowing is not an individual sport, but getting recruited is. And in the spring, when racing season starts, less and less time is spent on the erg. Whether it is not so good quality time on the erg, less time is spent. The less the erg, I have noticed that in springtime into summer, their erg scores, club rows ergs, will get worse and worse and worse. Moving an erg is fundamentally different from rowing a boat, because the mass is being moved back and forth as the rower rows on an erg, whereas on the water, the boat moves back and forth as the rower is heavier than the boat. The problem with that is when you apply for college, you apply for college your junior year, okay? So the Erg score matters. So, I mean, I think the way I describe it is really important for parents to know. I'll recap it. The Erg score matters. Good technique matters to stay away from injury. The Erg score helps your son or daughter get recruited to college. There's a lot of unknowns in club rowing. Access to the coaches to find any communication directly is more difficult than it's easy. So if you have questions about the whole thing, just write me in the comment section here, or phone me. You can get my phone number online, no problem. Your questions will bring more subjects to talk about. I love my sport. I was extremely lucky to have had the coaches I had. I had elite coaches, coaches who won Coach of the Year for the International Rowing Federation. I was undefeated at Brown University, and I won a gold and silver medal at the Olympics. I went to 3 Olympics. I never had an injury. So rowing's awesome. Just know those little curveballs that you're going to face in the process. That's it for now. See ya.